Don expert Ears Baarns is one of the world's leading experts in voice recording and production, and his coaching video sessions tools were developed and refined with thousands of hours of private sessions with clients, ranging from beginners to expert level students. And he puts all that experience to work for you. And I know that because I've also taken his courses. And more than just a tech guy, Don started his adult life as a music recording engineer. And I think he used to play the drums as well, and is a performing musician in Los Angeles with decades of recording, production, and performance experience. And he has a unique perspective on audio tech. Don inspires and laughs with you. He makes a lot of mistakes at times, and when he goofs up, it doesn't matter. Like he said, it happens. I carry on, which makes the path more fun, interesting, and productive as you're working towards excellence, which is, of course, his aim. And nobody knows the VO tech better, and I also really believe that ever since I found him. I'm just amazed at what he knows and the knowledge that he can impart to other people. And nobody has better ears for maximizing your audio. It's why even other engineers call Don to borrow his expert ears when they have issues they need solved. So that's the introduction, Don.
Okay, so let's dial this back just a little bit though. So I'm a tech guy. That's what I'm known for all over the world. I've worked with crazy numbers of people, but I started my adult life as a performer. And what I will tell everyone, make sure everybody that we're talking to today, your tech part is important, that you end up with something that's above average. You definitely do not want to be the one that's struggling, or somebody notices that your tech isn't as strong as it can be. But at the end of the day, your performance and what Ashwin's a performer first. And even if his tech was just okay, he would do pretty darn well in this business. But when you combine great tech that you don't need to think about with a great performer, and you need both, you cannot just have great tech and succeed. So while today we are talking some about the tech, and we'll be talking back and forth about things you can do to improve your tech,
Right.
note that we're always looking at this from a mindset of what can we do that will take us so that the rest of the world forgets about our tech, and we end up at a point where we're not thinking about our tech. It's just working for us, but our performance is what they're focused on. They either love me, they don't like me. What I want is them to have an emotional connection to me. And let's flip this around. Your audience could care less about what tech you use. So our job is to get it to the point where that's in the background so that we can perform. I don't want to play drums and think about my drums when I was a performer. I want to think about the audience. I want to think about my emotion. So we are talking about tech today. That's our focus. But it's always from the point of view that we are looking at how do we get it out of the way so we can forget about it. And Ashwin's a master at that.
Well, I don't know whether I'm a master, but I think being an actor, and because that's what I was first, and because of acting school, I think coming into the voiceover industry was a little easier because I already understood the performance aspect. I know I can see, even online, I see a lot of people panicking about performance.
Right.
I don't think about that too much because that's already there. So I'm worrying about other things, trying to get that right. But you are right. Including the tech or side by side, that is as important a factor. And I think this is something you also say. People obsess about which mic they have, which cable they have. Well, of course, there are things that make things better, but I think you always say the space is better than the mic you have.
Yeah. Yeah,
If if
absolutely.
if you have a Neumann or a Sennheiser and you have a terrible space,
Right.
I mean, it's not going to help.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, people are obsessed about the equipment, and they're investing crazy amounts of money sometimes in the equipment. And the first thing to take care of is your room and your recording space. And the great thing is, without spending a lot of money, anybody and everybody can upgrade their space. And then as their space gets better, then we are going to look at also over time upgrading some things that will help you, but are not the focus. So the first thing is definitely your space, and then we put the other tools on top of that. That's kind of our foundational level. So if I spent $3,000, I don't know what the exchange rate is, but I spend a lot of money on a top of the line microphone, and I'm in a space that has a lot of reverb, then I have a problem because that mic is going to pick up everything in my room, and I'm not going to sound great. And at the end of the day, what that creates is a distraction. So if Ashwin was doing a scene and a train is going by in the background, then everybody's going to be looking at the train. If a
Right.
pretty person walks behind him who is not supposed to be there, is not part of the story, then he has this problem that there's a distraction in the frame that everybody else is paying attention to. And so we don't want anybody paying attention to anything but you.
So I also, when I stumbled upon you online, I was on Audacity first, and then I bought a pre-Sonus device, and I got Studio One Artist free, um, right? Because I loaded that on. I met an engineer friend of mine, a guy called Varun Parik, who's an engineer in Bombay, and he said, "Why don't you try Studio One? It's pretty good." So I gave that a shot, and of course, I had no idea what was going on. So I discovered you first from your YouTube videos. So
Yeah.
I learned my punch. I learned how to generally record in Studio One. I learned my punch and roll from all those, and that's when I also decided to take one of your courses from your site, vojumpstart.com, which which completely changed my life as far as audio editing goes. And like you said, um, I just put in chains. I just do my recording, and
Right.
I just export it.
Yeah.
Earlier, I used to drag in a plugin, do this, the next one. Now I'm just like, yeah, it's there. Maybe I'm going to tweak the mix tool here or something like that. So that made my life unbelievably easier. And what you really do is you just provide an easy framework for voice actors to work with, for them not to worry about this stuff. And I was just amazed at how much I learned from you.
Well, I do have a wife who's somewhat famous here in the States, and a son who also, both of them, my adult son's 14,000 voiceovers, my wife's
Yeah.
7,000 voiceovers, and crazy numbers of audiobooks. And both of them are non technical and they don't care. And the point is to set it up. Now, just as a background, um, every product that you could use, some are better than others. What's your favorite food, Ashwin?
Well, I mean,
What do
if
you
you're
like?
Indian, what do I
Yeah.
what do I like?
What would you have
Well,
for dinner tonight if you could?
if I could, I mean, I like butter chicken. So yeah,
Okay.
I'm Indian.
So
Yeah, yeah,
it's good. So the thing is that I'm ignorant. I know nothing about that. Butter chicken, I don't know good, bad. So for me, I could go to a gas station here in Los Angeles. I'm close to Hollywood. If they happen to have butter chicken and I try it, I'm going to go yuck, maybe, or great. But I have nothing to compare it to, and because I don't have anything to compare it to, I'll bet you, because it's your one of your favorites, you know where you can get great. What's the difference? And what is the difference between great butter chicken and just okay butter chicken? Do you know?
it's only if I've tried another one.
Okay. So here's the funny
I don't
thing.
know.
I don't think you and I are chefs. So I
No.
don't really care. I want to eat it. I don't know but over time I'll bet you've developed here's good stuff, here's just okay stuff. So if I don't know, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go find you. I'm going to go to the places that you recommend first. I'm going to try it there and get okay, this is what it can be. And then as I try other places, I have a frame of reference. I know what's decent. And that's how it works with the tools in this business. Everybody's looking, one, we don't want to spend any money and we do not want to waste any money.
Correct.
So there's a couple great tools, like you were smart enough to purchase an interface, and this piece of software came with it. By the way, right now worldwide, there's a sale going on for interfaces from the company I like Studio One. That's my baby. And there's an interface that's at the cheapest that will be all year long. It's amazing. It's the one that's sitting on my desk. It's what I'm talking through today, and it's at the lowest price. But that's beside the point. I spend my time going through all the different tools, same as a food critic might spend their time going through all the butter chicken they can find in their area and say, this one's great in this way, this one's great in that way. I don't always know, but I do know what I like. And then as I go through people, and as long as there's consensus around things where you figure out over time what works and what doesn't, then life is good. So I'm never going to know good butter chicken, but I know good chocolate. I know
You know,
good
good
coffee.
pizza. Yeah. Yeah.
I know good pizza. I know, and so here's the question for everybody that you're working the voiceover thing. If you're not familiar with the other options that are out there, find somebody who knows. And as always, everything's easier when I have a good mentor. And you may not be able to have Ashwin directly because he's so busy, but that's why you're here at this festival, in that you can find the people that fit with you, and not everybody fits with everybody. But one of the biggest business things that all of us can do is find the people who really, really know, and then stand on their shoulders. I do that all the time. I've always done that. I will always do that. And I highly recommend that you do the same thing as well. Find the people that are already where you want to be, and find out how they got there. What are they doing? And you're just, if you're in the, I'm talking to all the people that are already here. So it's your competitors that aren't here that are missing it. But you have a chance to get some great, great insights and find somebody and a group of people that you can learn from, because it just makes the journey so much easier. And I did the same thing.
Well, that's sort of what I did because when I initially spoken to you such a long time ago, I remember once you were really kind enough, I posted online on Facebook saying I got a problem with the interface, and you just popped up saying, "Are you home?" I know it's late at night in LA, it's morning here, and you came on try to fix it, and I just thought that was incredibly nice of you. But when the pandemic hit, and all us people who thought we were hotshot voiceover artists suddenly realized that we knew nothing because we
Yeah.
no because we used to just walk into a studio and
Right.
we used to just record in front of all these fantastic mics
Yeah.
and go, yeah, done, leave, and the engineer did everything.
Right.
And then suddenly there's a world out there asking for your voice and saying, hey, you know, I need I need to sound like radio. I need to sound like
Yeah.
TV. I need to sound you're like sorry, what? Because you only recorded raw audio all your life and you left. And that
Right.
beautiful sound was done by somebody else. So that's where I went kind of scouring the internet, trying to understand what was it I could do, and found all these things. And especially on Facebook, you have a couple of groups. You have the Studio One narrators group, which is Studio One oriented, and that's
Mhm.
fantastic in case any S1 problems and all that. And you have the VO Tech Simplified group,
Right.
which is fantastic because even I put up a couple of questions there. I've also answered a couple of questions there,
Yeah. Yeah.
and people are just amazing. You've got fabulous brains who've been working a long time, who are just ready to say, hey, you want this answered? Yeah, no problem. So when you say go look for someone. It's not that hard. If you want to be a little bit anonymous, you can still say anonymous. You can ask your questions. These groups, I mean, people are pretty nice. I don't see anybody being nasty at all. And I think they understand when somebody's asking a question. They understand a level that somebody's asking, and they're not condescending to them. Yeah, you can see
Yeah.
them.
It's so funny. So we have a pay it forward mentality. Our job, and the reality is, if somebody's a beginner, fine, and if somebody's advanced, fine. The biggest thing is, and you see this in Facebook groups. So VO Tech Simplified. If you're not there, be sure to join that. But our job is to make sure that when somebody has a question, that it's answered with as much grace as possible, but humility. And the fact is, nobody knows everything. What people don't realize is somebody can ask a question, and behind the scenes I'll go do a little bit of research before I answer, because sometimes they're asking a question from a point of view that I haven't heard before. Now the strange thing is doing this so long, I usually know I have an idea, but then I'll go research and verify that things are right. So let's talk about kind of some of the options that people have. First, you're going to have something that you're going to record in, and that's going to be, and for me, I have three tools that I tend to recommend to people, and that's going to be Studio One, Reaper, and Audition. Those tend to be the most popular, but the ones that have the potential to take you the furthest. Audacity is there, and many, 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 many people are using Audacity.
I started on it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I did too, by the way. So my adult son This is over 10. I was a recording engineer when I was a young guy. I cut master records. I did a lot of music production stuff. And I won't go over that background, but I have a lot of background in a traditional recording studio, the type of place that you would have gone in to do your original voiceover work. Then when I got involved in voiceover, it was because of my son. I have an adult son who's almost 40 now. And when he started doing it, he didn't even tell me. He was doing sports broadcasting here in the States, and he was starting to do commercials and things here. People were asking him to do some commercials. He just did it all in Audacity. And I remember thinking, oh, I can learn whatever he's doing and I'll help him, because he asked for some assistance. He knew I had a recording background. And that's what led me on this path. So I have a year and a half of just beating the heck out of Audacity and then following it over the years. There is a Facebook group for Audacity. And when it started, I actually, me and the guy who started it, discussed which groups we were going to start. That group started within a month of some of my bigger groups as well. So anyway, point being, I respect the other tools, but I'm always looking at them, trying to find what would help the voice actor get out of their head, get out of their tech head, and be able to have things set up to where they don't have to think about it. So you do have some tools, and there is a minor investment that everybody is going to have to make in their software in two ways. You do need to invest a little bit to get started. And luckily, I'm into I grew up really single mom. We didn't have a lot of money at that time. So I'm very, very budget conscious. So Studio One, Reaper, those two are both available to you at a low cost. And then, and there are others. People succeed with a lot of different tools. There's not only one. And so I'll help you wherever you're at. And then, of course, after we do that, I have a tendency to almost always add Isotope RX on top of everything.
I was going to come to that. Yeah, but yeah, of course. Yeah.
I'd be using Audacity and RX. That's an entry level, but RX will help Audacity. You should have both. And then Studio One and RX, Reaper and RX, Audition and RX are pretty much where most people are going to go.
And Reaper has a lifetime license of $50 or $60.
It's
a very good price as well. I think it's a steeper learning curve for some things, but I have Reaper as well.
So do I. I mean, I do too. Yeah. There's no one thing. So here's the funny thing: many of you are going to succeed, and you're going to use tools that I don't recommend, and you're still going to succeed. So hats off to you. So there's not one path. I'm not sitting here saying there's only one way to do things. What I am saying, though, is if you study the tools, there are better tools, like there is better butter chicken. And if I know nothing about the other options, then I think my butter chicken in my area is the best.
It's the best.
And it might be good. But for butter chicken, I'm not competing with anybody else when I eat butter chicken. It's just for me. Okay. So the difference when we get into the voiceover world is seek out the tools that give you the least amount of work to do once it's set up, and make sure that you can get excellent sound. And the one unfortunate thing here is that just like butter chicken, I wouldn't know good butter chicken from bad butter chicken. So whatever you send me, whatever I find locally, I'm going to think, okay, that's what butter chicken is. And then later, so you kind of have the same with tech. Most people don't have ears in the beginning. We all have ears. They don't have refined ears. They don't have seasoned ears. One of the difference between Ashwin, he hears some things from being around this for a long time and being in a great studio. He ended up with a perspective where when he heard what was done in the final, he's like, wow, he knows his performance. And then when it all comes together, he doesn't have to think about that. And sometimes you need an outside person or group to have some perspective on what you're doing. Ashwin's had that, and as his perspective from going into studios.
I try and do that, because best perspective is when a client just says thank you, so they like it. That's also, sometimes
that's a big one.
Well, I wasn't happy with that, and they get a message saying I was very happy with that. I'm like, okay, because maybe I'm obsessing about some other things in it. I know your son Donnie, and by the way, everybody's who's watching, Don's son Donnie is an absolute beast at the number of voiceovers he does. And like he said, he's also a sports broadcaster, and he has pretty much finessed his travel setup as well. He
Oh
shoots
yes.
off voiceovers from hotel rooms. Even I do that, and I know you've also helped him do that, and you've also helped him build his studio. I think he's living in Florida now, or where
He's in
he
Florida now.
in Florida.
Yes.
And you've got a grandchild, so congratulations on that. First of all,
Yeah.
um, so
Well, here's the
so I
funny
know
thing
you've been
though.
helping him.
So his travel setup, the microphone he's using right now is on sale. I think it's like it's $200 US.
It's very
Uh,
expensive in India. Very expensive in
it'd be
India.
very
And
expensive in India.
yeah, it's, in India, it's almost $400. But if somebody buys it in the States and brings it for someone,
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to
then
make a
yeah,
trip over there soon. Okay,
here,
so
here, here.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the
So
one.
that's the funny thing. So
Yeah,
of all the
yeah,
microphones that he could have, that
yeah.
one is a lower price microphone. And what happens is when he travels, he has what he travels for sports broadcasting, and he still has to do voiceover sometimes from hotel rooms, which are
Right.
totally untreated. So
Which
he'll
I have
call
to
me
do.
and show me on the phone the room, and we'll put a blanket over or something. We'll ask room service for extra pillows
Yeah.
and extra blankets. They think he's having a sleepover or something, like he's going to have 10 people there, I guess, because they're like he wants extra blankets and extra pillows, and we're sometimes putting blankets over things and pillows, and he's calling and we're looking at it and going, yeah, you know what, if you took the ironing board, you could take the ironing board, and that we're going to put a blanket on the ironing board and put that on the side, and we're going to use the chair there, and he's down on his knees and he's got his mic in front of him. And here's the great thing, because he has a really good tech setup and he has the right tools, he can record in a hotel room and sound really, really good. Now, I can tell a difference. There is a difference. It's not as nice as his real studio, and it takes effort, but he can do it with an inexpensive mic, with a not perfect setup, and he still can provide something to his clients
But
that,
you can tell the difference because your ears are trained for that. But most people we're sending off the work to
yeah,
wouldn't really know, right? And we panic.
right.
I think as voice actors, we're constantly panicking about that sound, and sometimes I think we're worrying about too much.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you make good butter chicken, I don't care whether you used this oil or that. I mean, I do at one level. I like good quality food, like most of us. Okay. So I'd prefer better ingredients, but I don't know. And for one meal, I'll eat anything that is pretty good. And then if it was at home, then we use the perfect ingredients and we do everything. But life isn't perfect all the time. And in the voiceover world, there are moments where you need to get something out or you need to get started and you don't have the perfect setup. So don't let that get in the way. Don't let, oh, I'm not good enough. I got to wait another 2 years. Um, Go out and do it today. Do the best you can with what you have, and then be a constant learner and somebody who's seeking out good mentors. And I don't. I've had experience with some people in India. All my favorite learners, for some reason, have come out of India. I've just known some. I've done some business with some people over decades, and as a group of people, and I don't mean to generalize, some of the best learners in the world come out of India. I don't know what you guys do, what's in the water there, but it's amazing. And if you keep the attitude that I've seen, you'll do insanely well. Just don't stop. Don't think that you already have it nailed. Don't think you can't be better. But also, once you get someone that analyzes and helps you get it set up, then please forget about it. As far as start, most of your focus is on marketing, most of your focus is on performing. The tech stuff should be in the background.
So here's where we come to when you always talk about those extra tools, and you were
Mhm.
just talking about RX as well. And I also picked up RX Standard a while
Yeah.
ago. It's only I only refined it from things that you had said, learning from a lot of you. I fiddled around at first, but again, for everybody listening and watching, Don, there's a tool in RX Standard which actually almost every studio, if you record in a studio, they will be using that without doubt, and that is the mouth declicker.
Right.
Now, I have an extremely noisy mouth, and when I mean, I'm sure my wife will also tell me that. But I mean, maybe because I'm too loud, but I know, and I used to panic about this because I could hear the, and everybody goes hydrate, hydrate. I used to hydrate all the time. It was still there,
Yeah,
but my God, I mean, after I've got my my mouth declick, the settings and all that. Really, I think I've got 95% of it out of the
right.
way. There's only bits in the middle that I can see, and then I mean I use your layering,
Yeah.
all the layering stuff that you've taught to remove that. But Dawn is pretty much mouth declick that we use, and it's invaluable, is because of Dawn.
Yeah, well, if we go back to 2014, so I'm a little older. I've been doing this a long time. In 2014, my wife Lisa was working on audiobooks full time, and her mouth noise just drove me crazy. And I used to go through in those days we had very primitive tools. I had RX, but RX at that time only had something called the classic declicker, the original
Yeah,
one,
the
and
declick.
it
Yeah,
was
yes,
it was designed for taking records, albums, vinyl records, and moving them to the computer and taking out the pops and clicks that would come from needles as they're going around. And
the
I
scratching.
and I happened to, by chance, I was asking questions online about RX and how to do something that was somewhat complicated, and a gentleman answered me and I was, and then I kind of challenged him. I said, "Okay, I love your answer, and it works for me." But I said, I've been searching for this answer for about 3 months, and you're the first person that answered. Where did you find this information? Because I wanted to know how in the world he learned this. I couldn't believe he gave me the right answer because it was really sophisticated. And he sheepishly told me, "Oh, I'm the one that wrote the denoisers." So I met the gentleman who wrote some of the core of RX, and I showed him the problems I was having with mouth noise in terms of the amount of time and the amount of steps I was taking to use the tools back in the day, over 10 years ago. This was in RX4, and he said he was just surprised by how much work I was having to do to remove mouth noise. And then he built he said, "Can you send me samples?" So I sent him samples of my wife's voice over a period of time. And it took about a year and a half. And then the mouth declicker was born. Now, I had that tool over a year before it went live. It went live in RX6. And I really thought it would make RX5, but management didn't think it would work. So, I'm the grandfather. The gentleman that wrote the denoisers also wrote the mouth declicker, but he had good samples. And my wife's voice was the first voice they used, then mine, then 1,000 others over time to get that tool out. Here's the dirty secret. Ashwin, you say you have a noisy mouth. You really don't. Everybody has some mouth noise, and it varies from day to day, week to week, depending on, did you have butter chicken last night? That could cause more mouth noise or less. Hydration. Some people overhydrate. Their mouth is so wet that they actually
It goes
have
short
additional
sometimes. Yeah.
noise. So it's not one way or another. And so I do. And so just know, if you have the mouth declicker running in RX, it does take care of about 95%. And then there's this weird thing. You don't have to obsess about the last 5%.
Yeah, I
Almost,
know.
right?
I know that is something that you always say, and I know that I guess being human, we just do. And the other
We do.
aspect is that people always ask you, Don, how do I remove breath?
Yes.
And you always tell them, why? I mean, you're
Well,
human, you breathe.
yeah.
So what is bothering you? Unless something is most people don't. But again, we uh, unless they're people who've recorded for Bunny Studio, who go, there's a breath. But on the whole, it's the same thing. We just obsess about all these things. I guess we can't help it, but you try and
Yeah.
tell people, just relax, don't worry about it.
Well, there's a balance. And so here's the thing that you do need to do. If I don't know anything about butter chicken, what if I go ahead and I throw, let's say instead of chicken, I say it's tofu? You go, well, it's not butter tofu. I mean, if I pretend and I call it butter chicken, then you're certainly going to eat it and say, that's not butter chicken. I mean, I've totally missed butter chicken.
Right.
So you do need to have a reference point. And so when we have the right tools set up, then we're going to be able to have most of it taken out. Once it's close, then here's what happens. During this conversation, I will probably say, and I'm going to point it out. And so you can laugh at me. That's fine. I don't say very often because I've edited my live recordings often enough to refine that out. But if I say occasionally, nobody's really bothered by it, especially when we have this interactive conversation. What would bother you is if I say or cool or whatever my nonsense syllable is, then too often, and you notice, then it will bother you. And it's the same with mouth noise and breaths. Once I hear a breath
You can't
that's too
unhear
loud,
it. You, you,
I can't unhear it. And the worst person for hearing breaths is me hearing mine, you hearing yours, everybody hearing their own. Once we start noticing, breaths are like sibilants. People have a tendency to take out too many breaths. People have a tendency to take out too much sibilance. And there are people that could reduce it a little bit. But when they do, for both of those two sounds, people tend to, working on their own stuff, take out too much. So we may need to take out a little. And there are performance techniques for both of those that can be utilized that will get it to where your breath is part of your performance, part of your humanity, part of the warmth of your voice. And if you've ever had a client, my wife's amazing at this, so is my son. They've sent in something and the client said, it sounds kind of mechanical. It sounds
all
kind
the
of
time. Not all the time, but I mean, definitely
yeah.
more times than one expects. Yeah.
It's surprising. And what it comes down to is those clients have never heard what I call naked voice. And so sometimes we will send them, here's a trick, by the way, to earn more business. Send them what they order. They order a raw piece of audio. We send them the raw
In the
audio,
raw.
100%. And then what I send them in addition, if they're new to me,
I
is
know
what
what you're
I
going to
call
say.
a context version. And it's my voice, my wife's voice, whatever, your voice with
With
some
music.
music in the background. And I just say, hey, I know you have your own background. I know you have your own music. But here's an example of how this voice will sound with good music. And if they're a new client and they hear that first, they're like, oh, that feels really good. And then they're not bothered by the naked voice, but many of them have not heard enough naked voice to hear how it sounds at the beginning and then how it will sound when it's all finished. So we have this interesting thing. If you send them a context version one time, they tend to go, wow, Ashford sounds great. It feels good. It has the emotion that we want. And then they're happy with the voice that doesn't have that. And then they trust you moving forward that what you send them is going to turn out great, even if they were not impressed at the beginning. And I can tell you, if you take out too many breaths, you do sound mechanical. So there's this
Yeah,
balance.
I've done that a couple once. I was being extremely nice. It was a shorter recording, and sometimes the shorter ones I take out the breath if it's a commercial. Because most of the times, and I got back saying, is this AI? I'm like, oh
Right.
man, they're just hearing it without a breath. I just realized because everything is, without the.
Right.
So I'm like, so I said, look, here's the raw audio. They go, oh, okay, that's fine. Um, and you were talking about the music bit. I have once in a while sent, from what you said, sent saying, hey, here's it with the music. But quite often I said to someone when they've gone, this, I don't know, this sounds too. There's no life in it. Usually they say
Right.
when you said raw audio because they just used to what they're saying on TV, hearing on TV and radio.
Right.
So I said, well, I said, you're a production company. Have you put music on it?
Right.
The guy goes, no. I said, well, put music on it and then send it to the client. They said, okay,
Right.
we'll do that. And it kind of worked out fine. But I did that from your suggestion. In fact, I've done Don's VO Jumpstart courses, which taught me all about Studio One, both the entry level course and the advanced. And in one of them, he has one of the modules is sidechain and compression on how to do that for music as well, which you made that completely easy. I just lay down the track and you already have your settings there, and maybe you have to tweak it a little bit, but as soon as I start speaking, the music goes down
Right.
and it comes up, and I think that's great. So
So two things about that.
those tools are fantastic.
So here's the cool thing. Once you have that set up, you don't have to think about. So I have my whole setup. My wife is totally a non-tech person. She's an amazing voiceover. Matter of fact, I guarantee she'd never be in this business without somebody doing her tech to begin with and getting it all set up. She has a theater background. She's an actress, so she's great at that stuff. Hates the stuff, hates all the rest, but she can add music that auto ducks and does all the right things. And she does have to adjust its initial volume because every piece of music is different.
It's different, yeah.
But after that, it's like she doesn't think about it, and she can put that context version out in about 3 minutes. She also has a collection of music that we've developed over the years. We have we have 100 songs that are all set up that she can pick from immediately, and then we have a bigger library that is about 1,000 songs.
You have an entire session saved with all those songs. I know that.
I do. I save. I'm constantly on the lookout for great background music, and I collect it and categorize it so that when I need something, I'll tell you the truth. If I had someone that told me that this spot was going to play in India, and they told me where, and it was for maybe an Indian church, well, we would research and find out what is the most popular music in that area, and we would try to have something that made sense. We would go and get that. I've had something in Africa. There's a church in Africa that hires my wife to do some things, and they wanted music behind it. What did I do? I went out and found some music that is appropriate for their region of the world.
Connect.
Even though it was great music, it wasn't what I didn't even know about this music. I found some great stuff. So point being, it is helpful when you have a sense of, oh, this is a happy spot and this is happy music. And this is a scary spot. What is music that goes with a very serious, scary subject? So there's a recommended chain for voice production. You have inherent room noise, which you need to remove. So here's what's going to happen for me almost all the time. We're going to have to bring the volume up because the final deliverable is going to be louder than we record. That's 100% of the time. It's just the way it is. We cannot record loud enough, so there's going to be some volume. And so I'm just going to give you my basics and tools. We're almost always going to have some volume going up. We're going to have some good quality compressor, and like butter chicken, there's good butter chicken and there's just okay butter chicken. Compressors are a big deal, and so I'm going to bring the volume up. I'm going to have a compressor, and I'm going to have a limiter. And that's the absolute minimum, and that's the sequence that I would have them in as the absolute minimum. And just note, unfortunately, how much compressors work differently depending on how much volume that goes into them. So you run into a few little things. It'd be like, how much salt do I put in my butter chicken? Well, it depends on what butter I used. Did I use salted butter in my butter chicken, or did I use butter that had no salt? And based on those two, so I can't tell you in advance how much salt to add to your butter chicken. I suspect, by the way, I have no idea if butter chicken has salt in it, but I'll bet it does. So those are the things. And then let's talk about the room noise. So if we have a room noise, then there are people that are going ahead and using a gate or an expander to cut out their room noise from their point of view. Unfortunately,
that doesn't change anything in the middle.
Yeah. So while I'm talking, a compressor and expander can't work during the time I talk. Now, when I stop talking, my compressors and my expanders can do their job, and they will bring down the points in between. That can fool newer people into thinking that their voiceover sounds quiet. But unfortunately, if done in many ways, like a good chef would know, if I, instead of use real butter, maybe I use some cheap ingredient to substitute for butter, and I try to get it by accident, he's going to go, this isn't butter chicken. This is he would notice that it's not as good. So one of the things that happens with the better tools, the better denoisers, not only can they take noise out of the spaces, and that's between phrases, that's what we're talking about when we're using a compressor, not a compressor, when we're using an expander or a gate. You
like to use a downward expander, I think.
I will use a downward expander in a good room. Yeah. So here's the funny thing. I don't use it anymore 100% of the time, but it is in my chain in a lot of things where it's there, but it's at such a low level that people don't realize it may not even be coming on. So it's in my chain. I do use it all the time in a chain. I just don't, I have it set at a level that will probably do nothing until I talk to somebody and I analyze what they're doing, and I may then bring it in and do a little more. Because here's the problem. If there's noise in my background behind me, well, look I have noise behind me visually. I have noise behind me. These are custom sound panels, by the way. So they're just covered in fabric, but I have,
Okay.
but these are sound panels behind me. So now I have noise behind me. So as I move around, you see the noise behind me. And if I had it moving, it might distract you. It may distract you now. You may hate it. By the way, I bought it because I went to the store when I built those things with my mom. And she liked that fabric. And I decided, cool. All right. Yeah, as old as I'm 63, I still listen to my mom sometimes. Okay. So that's how I ended up with it. I was just going to get light blue and dark blue because that's kind of me. Anyway, it's the same thing with some of the tools. There are some tools that I put in my chain that people will see I'm using a tool, but they don't realize, am I using it a little or a lot? Am I putting a little salt or a lot of salt? And it does depend on the situation. Just know this. If you're using a gate or an expander to cut out the room noise, many clients who are more advanced that pay better will hear that you have noise behind your voice and then the noise goes away. And contrast is something that the brain picks up on very quickly when it's listening to things. If I'm very loud and very quiet, the brain will pick up on that. That's normal. If my noise goes away when I stop talking and then comes back in the background, many people who are more advanced, a little more advanced, will hear the noise. Or here's the worst one. A client listens to Ashwin and listens to me and pretend this is not true. We were both reasonable about the voice read. His would be great. Mine would be just okay. I'm not a great voiceover artist. But pretend they said, oh, I like some of what he does. I like some of what he does. But he has better tech in the background. They don't know why his tech is taking out the noise both in the spaces and behind his voice. They'll just go, well, I don't know. He sounds better. I don't know why his butter chicken is better. I just know his sound is better. And if we were brothers and we had the similar voice, they still would pick him if he's got his denoisers working to take out things behind his voice as well as what's in the spaces. So what tools you use matter. If you're not sure, I do 15 minutes with people for free where I show
I know.
them, you know.
I think Lakshay was just asking that as a question for Don. Would you have an option to help build a vocal chain for VO talent? And yes, he would. I mean,
Yeah, I do it
he
remotely all
would.
the time. I mean, matter of fact,
And
I live on Zoom.
no, I pretty much use Don's vocal chain. I mean, I tweak things around, but
Yeah.
I keep certain things. I Before I discovered Don's courses and even chatting with him, not all the time, but I used to clip.
Yeah.
When you were exporting, you're like, you've just done 10 minutes of export, and it goes clipping your curves. It doesn't tell you where, and you go, where? Ooh, why? And I got to tell you that I don't clip anymore.
Yeah. Well,
I don't bother. I don't bother about it because of the settings I have. I really don't think about it.
yeah. Well, and you
So
shouldn't
I don't.
have to.
You should,
Okay.
yeah,
So Emmett, just know. I think I pronounced that wrong. How do you, Gashwin? Is it
yeah.
Amit? Amit?
Amit, yeah, is that
Amit.
Amit there? Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Good. By the
AMIT
way,
Amit.
please
Yeah.
forgive me. I try to get everyone's name right,
No, no, it's
and I.
fine. We're all from over. Nobody's going to say anything. Don't worry
Okay.
about it.
Well,
They're
I
not.
just
They're
want you
not
to know.
clients. They're not
I
clients.
want to get it
You know.
right. I don't always get it right when I read it, and I apologize for that if that comes up. So I do talk to people all the time over Zoom. I do it worldwide. I have some sessions, and hit me up. We'll calendar that. So, um, and then so by the way, so I have a calendaring link that if you send me a message, you can send me a message. But if you're on Facebook, find me on Facebook. If you're on email, we'll get that. I don't know, but you can get me through my site, that kind of thing. Now, just know after these sessions, just like Asher, I get flooded with messages because
Yeah.
I talk at conferences all the time. If I don't answer within 24 hours, send me something again, and then find me in another channel sometimes. But I just can get flooded because I've been doing this a long time, and so especially immediately right after. If you send me something today, chances are just if you don't get an answer, it means sometimes it can go to spam. That's one of the biggest.
Yeah.
I feel
I know.
terrible because sometimes I don't
No, it
respond
happens.
to
It happens
somebody.
a lot. It
And
happens a lot. It happens to all of us.
they think that I'm just a flake, where it's like, if I knew it was there, I would have definitely answered it. So I just apologize in advance for that. So now,
I actually never care if somebody doesn't respond on social media. I
okay.
I don't care.
Yep.
It's okay. There's a lot of other stuff happening. It doesn't hurt me. There's no,
Right.
it doesn't bruise my ego. I've sent a message. So either somebody replies or they don't. It's fine. I'm sure there's stuff going on. So
Well,
so I,
and I
I
just
just want to tell people, don't worry about things like that.
I do
Yeah.
I do well, except for I like people, so I don't want to be rude and not answer it. But it does happen, and things also get caught in spam. So let's talk about, what else can we talk about that would be
I'm
helpful for
yes,
people?
yes. There's something I want to talk because I know time, and it's about something that I am quite passionate about as well.
Mhm.
And I know you are, and it's about punch and roll.
Oh yes. Okay, so
It,
people are not, so punch and rolls like butter chicken. You'll get me on a whole rant about this. There's
yeah,
good butter chicken. There's great butter chicken. There's just okay butter chicken. Okay. By the way, someone's going to have to send me a good recipe on butter chicken. Okay. So
we will
I want to have,
organize that. Yeah,
we will
don't
do
worry.
that because I want to learn now. I want to now I'm curious because I don't know. And in fact, I'm gonna go find a good Indian restaurant. Luckily, I live in a big area here in LA, and there are some great Indian restaurants. But anyway, I'll find some butter chicken, and then I'll let you tell me how it should be. And if you guys know, send me a butter chicken recipe of the best stuff. Okay,
We'll
we'll
do
try to
that.
make it
Yeah.
there. So when we're talking about punch and roll, there's good punch and roll, there's better punch and roll. And the reason I ended up with Studio One, the details, and this is true of anything we do, from butter chicken to working on my writing or my speaking, I want the best possible tools. And when we do punch and roll, and at one point we'll need, if you ever want to see a demo, just hit me up and get on my calendar. We'll do the 15 minutes. I'll show you why I use the punch and roll that's in Studio One, because not only, so just know, punch and roll is not all the same. Just because a product says it does punch and roll doesn't mean they did it to the best of its ability. And the details make a difference for your productivity and getting the tech out of the way. For example, if somebody's using Audacity, they put punch and roll in at some point about 4 years ago, roughly. And
4 or 5 because I used it then. I think you press the D key or the O key.
yes, it's
But
shifty.
shift,
It's regular. I shifty or
shifty. Yeah,
control D. I can't remember. But point
yeah.
being that they have one key for regular recording and one key for punch and roll. And then people kind of go, all right, do I punch and roll? Do I do something else? Just regular record? And you made a decision back and forth because you use different keystrokes. I believe that's a basic mistake in a sense. It's not a mistake. First, people will succeed using any tool. It's extra work and things that somebody doesn't need to think about. When I recommend to people, even if you're using Audacity, and you will not in the beginning know the differences as to why another tool might be much stronger about the punch and roll. But one of the things is, no matter which tool you use punch and roll 100% of the time is my recommendation. Why? You will get insanely quick and efficient at doing the same thing that you do 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, Ashwin's case, 60,000 times a year. As you go ahead and record, when you get used to using punch and roll 100% of the time, your stress level goes down because it's easy to re-record. Number two, you can get better quality matches if you do the punch and roll right or well. I mean, there are details like everything else. You can do it well, you can do it just okay. So make sure that you're both doing punch and roll full time, 100% of the time, and then you're talking and finding the mentors that can help you refine and do it really, really well. Why? Because you want to get so good that when you have an audition come in, you can kick that audition out within 10 to 15 minutes
Yeah.
total. And when you do great punch and roll, you'll get to the end and have almost no editing to do. So my son, he did edit. I mean, he would listen to everything about his first 5,000 voiceovers. Today, he's so good at it that about 80% of the time he records. When he makes a mistake, he fixes it immediately with his punch and roll. By the time he gets done, he has nothing to edit because
I
he's
know.
done all his
He's
stuff
done
in.
that. The only obsession is the voice actor thinking about all the noises he's made and all that.
Yep.
I mean, either
Yep.
he's okay where RX and the other chains come in. Ideally, you should have finished it. I know, I mean, but my head makes me want to listen to things again. That's
Well,
just
and
me.
he did the
I know.
first 5,000. He did. But what we talked about it afterward, and I said, all right, how many times are you editing something out? And then we looked at what he would edit out on those things, and he did get to a point where 80% of the time, for 80% of the clients, he can just go ahead and run it through RX, and he sends it off without having to audit it again,
Yeah, so
because
I do
he's
that.
so good
Yeah.
at the punch and roll. But thousands and thousands. And so when you don't think that if you're a beginner, in a sense, I mean, I don't mean this in a negative, like you can't do it. You can do whatever you want. He invested over the first 5,000 that he did to make sure everything was as perfect as he could do it. Now he's selective, and what will happen is he gets hired so much that some days the intensity of the work is just, hey, get it out the door as fast as possible. Um,
I think
so,
Ahmed
uh,
was just asking. I
yeah,
think you were answering my question, then deviated. So I don't know what we deviated
yeah.
to.
So I'm at tell us
That
what
could be
we.
my fault. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, no, no, no. We're okay. So someone asked here about Logic. Um,
That's luxury asking. But I use Logic. I mean, whatever works for you
Logic's great. Just note
for
the
music.
guy who runs the Logic voiceover group uses Studio One for all his voiceover stuff and uses Logic for all his music stuff. And he has the inexpensive version of Studio One for all, and actually he now has the pro version. He does audio drama, but anyway, he knows Logic really well. He loves Logic, but he still does all his voiceover work in Studio One. And there are some reasons why that group has 300 people and the Studio One group has 4,200 people. Simply because Logic's punch and roll is there's some workarounds that you can make it work, but by default it doesn't do punch and roll as well. And so there are some good reasons. If you ever want get in a conversation with me, I'll get you in touch with the guy. He runs the Logic group, but he doesn't use it for the voiceover
No
stuff.
problem.
And it's
Because Logic is fantastic for music.
it is. It's awesome.
I
It's an
use it.
awesome program.
Amit, I think I saw your question. I think Don actually did answer it in general. So if you go back with regards to your chain, he's given you a general chain that he uses. With inherent room noise, he just recommends not using a gate. And there's always RX. If you have RX, you move it to RX. You have spectral denoise within that. You have a whole bunch of tools, and nobody would know any different. Um,
Right. And
really,
and really
I
that's
think that's all. Yeah.
yeah, because those tools can actually take out noise behind your voice as well as noise in
Behind
the
the voice.
spaces. And
So
that's
when you're looking at something that takes out noise, you just need to make sure that it's removed from within the speaking element as well.
mhm.
And who was I think Lakshya saying, is it true that my door is limiting me from delivering better? Again, it's what Don was saying about butter chicken or pizza. You don't know till you tried something else. Audacity worked great for me till I tried Studio One. Now I don't know if there's something better than Studio One. I'm really happy with it because I'm very comfortable. There are people who are true believers in Reaper. They absolutely love,
Yep.
there's Mike
But
Delgado, boot
just
junkie,
note,
who he's obsessed with a Reaper, and there's people who love Audition.
yep.
So it's up to you what works for you.
Yeah. And just note, so I pay for Reaper, and
I
Reaper
I
though
prefer Reaper as well. Yeah.
Is something that takes a lot more work than Studio One to get set up because it's more of a construction kit. It's designed for people, and when I do comparisons, Studio One will win about 80% of the time for people that are starting and they're comparing the two back and forth. And then the dev team, and there are reasons behind the scene, but that's like getting into the details of which butter chicken is better. Never will we get consensus that everybody thinks butter chicken from this place is the only butter chicken and the best. There are multiples, and so Reaper is one of my favorites among the big three. Okay.
Uh, Reaper's a favorite. Uh, and I understand that there was a time that you weren't an advocate of punch and roll as well. What changed?
Oh, well, here's the embarrassing thing, but this is how most of us are in life. I argued, if you go back over about 10 years in the Facebook groups, you will find me arguing with people that I did not need to do punch and roll because I was such a good editor. I was using Audacity at that point. I actually wasn't doing voiceover at that point. I was just helping my son. and I'd gotten to be such a good editor for him because I had my editing experience prior doing music. So I knew sound. I learned the tools, but I used to argue against punch and roll. I would say I'm such a good editor, I can do it so fast. What I did not understand about this was the fact that I need to have the highest quality match from a performance point of view. And when you do punch and roll well, you will get a better quality match through the punch and roll process.
Because there's
So,
sometimes there are people who come to you 1 year later, and
mhm,
we want to pick up 2 lines have changed in this paragraph.
right.
I mean, and you're like, I'm sorry, what? You know,
Yeah.
uh, and then you might have changed your mic, you might have changed your space, your head's going, but I mean that's where punch and roll comes in, to the
Yeah.
best of ability to try and match, because you pick up from the last word, from the last
Yep.
breath, and move it in from that. But they
And
really have come and said that a year later.
yeah.
Yeah,
Anybody that's been in the business a while knows people come back at odd times. It could be a week later, it could be 2 years later, and you have to match. But here's the dirty secret. Because I've worked with people that do audiobooks, and those obviously are long form. There's going to be 10 hours of audio, 5 hours of audio, 15 hours of audio in an audiobook. So I get to hear the same person talking for 15 hours, and I've just done thousands of chapters. It's crazy. I'm sure over 10,000, where I get to hear people that are recording in different methods. And what I guarantee you are the people that sound the most complete are the people that are doing punch and roll, and you can hear the people that are not over time. Now, some of their stuff you can't tell. I mean, they'll have a 5 minute segment where you can't tell, but then you get to a segment where you realize, oop, edit, 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 edit. You can hear them, and it's very subtle. You have to be in a good room with great monitors that's quiet, and so the average audience isn't going to hear it. But the thing is that they also spent more time. And so it's kind of a double loss where they don't realize, like I didn't, and I argued against it. I will just go ahead and say the same thing 3 times if I make a mistake, and I'll edit it out afterward. The problem with editing it out afterward is it takes time. And this isn't even a secret, but most people aren't thinking about it. If Ashley and I, we're both competing for a job, which would never happen, but pretend they were thinking of him and they're thinking of me, and we're working for the same people. And every project, it takes me 2 days later to return it than him. He's returning something the same day, the next day. I'm taking one extra day because I do more editing. And if on every project it takes me longer than it takes him, at some point, if he's available, he's going to be the first choice. I may still get a bunch of work. Matter of fact, I won't know. This drives me crazy. I don't know what jobs they didn't choose me for because either my tech stuff wasn't good enough or my work ethic was such that it took me a week to get something back, and Ashwin's turning it in 2 days.
yeah.
Sometimes they don't tell me, well, he's faster than me. His stuff sounds better than yours. Pretend we were brothers and our voicing was pretty close. He's winning the job with this little competitive edge of he has his tools set up. He's able to record faster and cleaner, get better matches, and it all comes in sooner. Well, I don't know. We over here, I'm sometimes disgusted when I order on Amazon and it takes an extra couple days.
I mean, yeah.
Or
How could they? Yeah.
yeah, what's wrong with them that they're going to take a
Well, yeah.
week to
Yeah.
deliver my pickleball racket?
Yeah.
Okay,
Just wrong. Yeah.
it's something's wrong with this world. And I live in, like many of you, I live in a big city, so I'm spoiled that even a 1 day delivery, when it goes to 2 days, I'm thinking, I'll bet I could find somebody. Do I need so many times I don't need what I'm ordering the next day,
Or
but
it says, being delivered between 2 and 9 p.m. You go, why not two? Why
yeah,
nine? So
yes. Well,
that's
I think so. Think of your clients. Your job is from a working point of view is to figure out how to get this stuff done faster. So I was absolutely arguing with people, and it's so long ago. You really have to. I have to go find and see if it's still available. I did it about a year and a half ago, and I could still find. I was embarrassed, but I could still find my thing that went back 9 years ago of me arguing with a guy online about that something else other than punch and roll was just as good. and that
I
I can
mean,
put out
I think it'd be
just as
great
good stuff.
to look at that again. In fact, the other night, I had a client who called and said the company needs, it was like a e-learning training module. They said they need it tomorrow. I'm like, okay. And he said it's 5,000 words. I said, oh, but so I guess I did, in this case, I didn't bother. I just recorded it
Yep.
and I sent it because I did not have time
Right.
to. So in this
Right.
case, and then he messaged saying, "Yeah, engineer says it's fine." So I'm
Yeah.
like, I didn't QC it myself, But when I have a week, then I do a lot of QCing.
Yeah.
If I have less time, then I just send it off because
Well,
it's the
that's
same
what's
thing.
happened. So that's how it happened with my son. He just got so busy at points that he had to say, I have no choice. I have too much to do. I'm going to send them out. And then he sent out so many. Now, just note, if he gets a job from, he said he's done Microsoft and Nike, and he's done these big major corporations that are worldwide. And if he does one of those projects, he'll usually send it to me and say, hey, can you check this one time? He's smart enough to say, I checked it. I think it's good. Can you check it over? And that's just good business where if you take something that's really, really high priority, and then of course you're going to take more care with it. They're paying better. They're somebody you want to have repeat business. Now we want repeat business from everybody. Even I don't care if they're doing just one little project. I want them happy enough that they think of Ashwin delivered. He was awesome. I
Me
want to
too.
use him again. And the only reason they don't use Ashwin is because he's too busy with somebody else and he can't fit me in right now. That's the kind of mentality we're trying to get everybody to the point where your clients are happy because not only are you delivering great quality, but you're doing it in a time frame because you're using good tools that allow you to put it out faster than your competitors. And then if they ever have to choose, I want to have you get the nod. You be the one that the client picks first because you have the right combination of your voicing is great. You're working on the performance. You're working with people like Ashwin and the people here at the festival. I mean, you almost have an embarrassment of riches. You have too many good people that that could help you in this business. And I assume because you're here, you're taking advantage and finding some of the best mentors available any place
So
in the world.
here's another thing, for all of you listening, what Don does with his courses, and because I've also taken them, and also because of he gives a lot of free advice on Facebook and YouTube. Now he's running his live on YouTube as well,
Yeah.
so you can go to Facebook. It's also there on YouTube, and it's really, really great information. He also teaches you how to export quicker. When I first started S1, it took me really ages to understand how to export. Now, I mean, with the things I learned from you, I export things so fast. I want this section, boom, gone. I want this, done. It's just changed my workflow and my productivity as far as getting the files out.
I make more mistakes than most people at a lot of things in life. So what? I also fix them. I'm always like, I want us to deliver our audio earlier than other competitors.
I think
I
that's your driving. I think that's a driving force that
It's
you're
one of
constantly
them.
looking
It's one of the things that I
to do
want.
things faster. Yeah.
I want to spend less time on the less important things and more time on the more important things. So the focus here is our performance, but we have to have a system. And for example, even this conference, my system was I'm going to log in a little more than an hour before I am scheduled to log in and just verify things are working right. I logged in and realized, oh, I had made a mistake. But because and I want to do this with everything, I'm not perfect about it, but I had made a mistake. I put it in my calendar wrong with the time changes. We're 12 and a half hours apart, and I put it wrong in my calendar. And because of my system of saying, when I'm on any of these sort of things, I'm always going to check in over an hour early and verify that everything on my end is working right. Is my mic working right? I don't assume. I always do it early. That's just part of my process. And I want you to have the same thing with your deliverables to clients. If you deliver early, they're happy. And if I make a mistake, they cut me some grace. So even when I make a mistake, which I do, they go, oh, well, he cares. This time he must have made a mistake because they know that my mentality is check in early, be early, don't be late, don't be late on your deliverables. Ashwin, how many times have you been late over the last 2 years for your deliverables to clients?
Never.
See, that's the mentality.
I,
That's
I, I,
because
I try. I mean, if I tell somebody 3 days, I get it to them in 2 days, then they're
right,
really happy. I'm just
right,
saying. But
right.
I try and send something well before the time, so they feel that they've got something before the time, and
Yeah, yeah.
it
Okay.
makes everybody happy.
Yep,
It's like your Amazon delivery. Instead of 9 p.m., you get it at 4 p.m.
yep,
That's
yep.
good. Yeah.
It's always
You know,
good. So that's
so
what we're talking about, the tech stuff. Don't
so
get
no, no,
overwhelmed by it. Find the good mentors.
I think Lakshya says under promise, over deliver.
Yeah.
I don't like the word under promise, but I've never, just promise and over deliver.
Well, that I agree with you too, because here's the one thing. So we end up with, I used to be Mr. Humble, and I still am on one level. But one of the things we're all in the entertainment business, and we're in the talent business. And what I can't do is say, oh, I'm just an okay talent, and then have them, and then say I'm going to deliver excellence to them after. You have to tell them you're going, an actor cannot go out in a movie and say, oh, we have an average director with an average cast with a average script. No,
No, you can't.
because no one will show up to watch the movie, even if it's great. You
Yeah,
can't act. You can't say, "Well, I'm not going to tell anybody that it's good with a good actor." You actually have to say, "We have good actors. We have a good movie. We have a good script. We had a great director. We had a great this," and then over deliver as well on that what you promised them. So you want to promise and over deliver, and it's okay to tell people, listen, I'm really good at what I do. You don't have to say it in those words. We want to be nice. We want to say it in a way that is not. Yeah. And by the way, nothing of this stuff has anything to do with tech, but I'm a total. I'm trying to look at somebody's total performance, and the tech is part of it, and make sure it's doing its job. That you win more jobs, and that's just being a
it's
good.
part of the package. It's part of
It's
the
part of the
package.
package, and always, so, but I also have to say, we in this business will not succeed if I don't tell someone I'm good at the core part of it. Ashwin will go out and tell people and directors, I mean, he tells them through his actions, but hey, I'm a good actor. He has a resume that shows that he's a good actor, but he will go out and he acts like a good actor when he's not acting, because he knows that they're never going to consider him if he just says, "Well, I'm kind of an average actor. I, I,
Nobody's
I."
going to give you. Yeah.
No one will pay attention to you. So it's unfortunate in a sense that we all have to. It was a hard thing for me to learn to say, "I'm really good at this." I try not to say that directly myself. It's easier if other people say it, but you do have to say and learn and become good enough that you can be confident. And one of the things that Ashwin, he's a constant learner. That's one thing I know about him, because I've interacted with him for over multiple years. He's a constant learner. He doesn't just say, "Well, I've arrived. I'm great." He will say he's great, but he
Exactly.
also continues to learn next year, next year, next year,
Because
next year, next year.
because every time you've done, I mean, and every time you post something, even on Facebook, somebody else does it. There's some great people on the groups. I'm like, huh, I didn't know that.
Right.
Oh, really? Th- there was a key that did, there's a key that did that. Uh, if I'd known that 2 years ago, it made my life easier. So I know there's always something to learn, and
Right.
you're always trying to. If I listen to audio I delivered 3 years ago, I'm probably going to go, but the clients liked it because I'm trying to just get things better. But I also understand, and I'm sort of coming to terms with this, or um, trying to understand this in the correct way. I'm a talent. I'm a voiceover artist and actor.
Right.
I'm not an engineer at Abbey Road Studios. I know I can do stuff that is good, and that should be good enough, and the rest of the people can make that better. So
Right.
I shouldn't obsess about it being the best thing that went out there. As long as the audio is clean, it's good, and the raw is workable for anybody.
Yeah.
I
I
don't know.
want.
I don't know what you think, but
Well,
I know
here's
you're
what
an
I think.
engineer.
My goal is that my clients are in the top 10%. when their audio goes out. By using the techniques that I put together, that they're in the top 10% without them knowing whether they are or aren't. They don't need to know
Right.
though, but I would. So if I were going to now I'm stuck on this butter chicken thing. Uh, so
That's
I'm going to
great.
go out and I want to find really good, but so that I have a standard and I know what really good. So now I have a process. And next year I hope to be invited back, and we'll talk about our butter chicken. How has Don done? Has he found some good butter chicken? And I predict I will. But that means now I'm aware, and that's the first step. I have to be aware. And then number two, I'm going to seek out and find some people that know something about butter chicken, and I'm going to say, where do I find good butter chicken? And then I'm going to do some research, and then I'm going to go try them. And it's the same process with tech. First, you have to be aware that your tech could be better. Seek out some people that really know. And there are a lot of people beside me that are excellent in this business. So I'm happy to help you. There are a lot of other people that are excellent as well.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
so point being, but find your mentor, find someone that you like to work with and that you can trust and that has some seasoning and some experience and sees some of the bigger picture, and use that and stand on their shoulders. And in the beginning, do what they tell you, even if it doesn't make sense short term. And then as you get good, then you can go ahead and go a lot of other directions and add your own seasonings and make it yours. But start with somebody who's already been doing this.
But
And
I can vouch for you, Don, on the basis of the courses I've taken, and I can say yes, it has increased and improved my productivity unbelievably. And the home studio setup in India is still, I believe, it's still a nascent stage as compared to the West, to the US, to Europe, to the UK. We're still learning, and I think it's the pandemic that actually changed all of that.
right.
And just knowing all these tech aspects, it's not just the voiceover. All these other things are incredibly important for us because 90% of what we're sending out is not to the studios that you used to work in. In fact, when I get jobs from production houses, I'm thrilled because I know I just have to send raw audio and I know the engineers are going to deal with it. It's actually the best. I'm
Right.
so happy with those jobs because it's just the recording and I can do multiple takes and I know even if there's a pop out here,
Right.
he'll fix it.
Right.
Otherwise I would have to fix the pop and all that. But for the other things, the companies that we work with as voice artists and voice actors don't know any different. They're
Yeah.
expecting fully finished audio,
I,
and
I,
that's why we have to learn all of this, to a certain extent.
yeah.
To
You
what
learn
to what is
enough. Yeah. Learn enough so that you can forget about it. Okay. And at the end of the day, your acting is more important. Your room is more important, but your room is part of your tech setup. So you just get the setup that you can walk in. One of the things that we'll talk about at some point is, how do you lower the friction to go in and record? For example, from the time Ashwin walks in and is ready to record, probably is going to be less than 3 or 4 minutes. If he wanted to record, he's ready to go within 3 to 4 minutes. He has his mic
I'm
set up. He has
I,
his,
I'm ready to
yeah,
go
is it
within like 2-3 minutes. Yeah, it's ready.
okay? Now, somebody newer is going to sit down and they're going to have to adjust their mic and figure out where their mic is and get their, so everything should be pre-planned and pre-ready to go and sitting there. And when you have that kind of stuff, now your focus is, all right, what's my script? What's the emotion? What's the message that I want to get to everybody else? Because the rest of that stuff is just in the background. But
So
so let's be really clear. You will succeed with or without getting your tech stuff, totally dialed in the early stages. You can do it all on your own. Cool. There's a ton of great information, but like butter chicken, there's good, better, best.
This is a very unique, this is a very unique session or interaction at our platform. We've been doing this for the last 5-6 years, and trust me, we've got some of the best people in the trade, not just in India, but some people from the US, from UK. We've had some fantastic speakers, and we continue to do that. But someone like you, you've come in all heart, and you've touched a subject which, like Ashwin was saying, we are still at a very nascent stage when it comes to individual voices. We're still grappling with getting the basics, in place. So I think this is like a blessing, because a lot of people who have watched this session right now, and a lot of them who will watch this in the days and months and weeks to come, I'm happy that they will get introduced to you and to this amazing service, or this amazing thing that you're providing to people to better their voiceover recording game, which I guess we are still grappling with performing as a voice talent. And this is the next level where you're talking about the technical upgradation of your recording. So the
Yeah.
plugins and the softwares, everything you mentioned, it's fantastic.
Well, thank you. But I want to emphasize for everyone, I do think it's critically important. I make my living. This is all I do, is talk to people about getting their tech. But I also think you need to take it. You're here at this festival. You're going to find some of the best performers in the world here, and you need to be reaching out to them and get your tech stuff to where it's behind you, and your room to where it's behind you and it's working, and take advantage of the talent that has been here this weekend, this week, all these sessions. You have all these amazing people. And I think you're here because you're hungry, and find the people here that can help you. There's so many that have already been on, and it's just, you just have almost too much. Okay. But find your mentors. Okay. Do
But
what
Don,
they say to begin with. Okay.
by the way,
But
yeah,
well, go
I,
ahead, Ashwin.
no, Darpan, I know I don't want to button, but Darpan is a master at the traveling voiceover as well.
Okay.
I've seen him set up sections in airport lounges and
Yeah.
things. So he travels. So him and Donnie have something in common. He's really mastered that. Yeah, I'm the master of a hotel room setup. He's the master of just anywhere, I think. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And you just have an embarrassment
I
of
love I
riches.
love
So,
my, Don, I love my Zoom H4n. I have got
yeah.
more than a couple of them, and
Yep.
like you said, that each to his own. Some people, something works for someone,
Yeah.
as long as you're giving out good quality. So over the years, I have developed a sense of comfort, a sense of camaraderie with the Zoom H4n, and I absolutely love it. And I think a combination of a decent field recorder or a decent recorder
Yep.
and a decent sensibility about acoustics of a space, I
Yes.
think these two
Always.
become like the basic ingredients to put out a good enough recording. And obviously, using stuff that you mentioned, you can just take it to the next level.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
so here's the great thing. Durbin's usually is in this great studio space. And then when he's on the road, sometimes something comes up and he needs to be able to produce something. And it may not be 100%, but he's still, because of what he knows, because of the
Good enough.
foresight and the effort he's put in advance. So he has his kit with him. He knows the right tools. He sits down and could be in an airport and record something. And his clients are happy because they wanted it today. And they didn't
That's
want to
right.
wait for him to get back to his
No,
studio.
no.
And everybody here could be at that level if they choose to make the kind of, now he hasn't invested. He's learned and he's invested in tools. And
You
then
don't
he's
have to lose the
constantly
work.
upgrading his voice. Say
You
that
don't
again,
have to
Ashton?
lose. You don't have to lose the work.
Right. Because
The,
what you
the,
don't,
the,
yeah. I don't want
the tech.
somebody else delivering.
No, the tech today allows you to say, yes, I can do the job.
Yeah. So it's really good.
Absolutely.
Really good. So you're around a bunch of
I,
smart
but
people
I,
because you attended this festival. Okay, that's all I'm saying. I know. Here's the funny thing: all three of us this next year, if we talk to you, I guarantee you we'll be better. Not because we're great people specifically, but we are lifelong learners. And I just recommend you. The mindset of the people that move up are those that constantly are learning about the craft and are just not stopping and saying, well, but I do know you're already here at this festival. So I know that you're already the type that's doing the right thing to improve your education. This is a great thing. It's amazing that you put this together. And how many years you've been doing this?
5,
this
Darpan,
is the
when you first
sixth
started,
consecutive year.
when we started
Yeah,
the
we
tiny
started
little
in
thing.
2018.
Yeah.
2018, we started this. 2019, 2020, when the world shut down, we
Right.
converted this one-day event into a
Online.
7-day festival. Yeah,
Online.
and this year it is a 10-day event. So
Wow.
it is absolutely crazy. One of the most iconic dialogues in the Hindi film industry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because someone said where to find Dawn, let me tell everyone that it is not just difficult to nab Don, it is almost impossible. Let's do that in Hindi. So Don, are you ready for this iconic dialogue?
Are you going to put it on the screen for me? All right. So here's
Right
yes.
away. I know.
Let's go.
I'm going to prompt you. Let's do it like
Okay.
let's do it
Let's
like
do
it's
it.
a voice recording. So let's
But
go. So now let
we'll
me
type it.
break it into three parts.
Yeah, we'll type it in as well.
So
if
the
you want.
first part. So
Yeah.
this the first part. Don, let's hear it. The first part is Don ko pakadna.
Say that one more
Don
time.
ko pakadna. Yeah. So Don
Wow.
ko pakadna.
I can say the first word. Don Copa.
Don ko pakadna. Pakadna.
Pakadna.
Don ko pakadna.
Copacabana. Don
Yeah.
Copacabana.
Don ko pakadna. Yeah. Let's have that
Don
once more.
Copacabana.
Don. Hello. Okay. Don ko pakadna.
Don Copacabana.
Beautiful. मुश्किल ही नहीं.
Muska Hilahim.
He nahi.
मुश्किल ही नहीं.
He Mahin.
Nahi. No.
Nahin. He
Let's try that. Let's try
Namahin.
that. Okay, let's try
Okay.
that. मुश्किल ही नहीं.
Mushkil He Nakin.
Nahi.
Brilliant.
Nahi.
Nahi. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go to the last. Let's go to the last word. नामुमकिन है.
Na Mumkin Hai.
Now mumkin. Kin.
Brilliant.
As in kin, relatives. Mumkin hai.
Munkin. Munkin Hai.
Yeah.
नामुमकिन है.
Nan Munkin Hai.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think many good mentors, a common trait among them is that they are learners, and you will find they almost always have something they're learning, sometimes unrelated to their main business, because they like to learn and they like to grow. And because I have the perspective of, wow, I don't want to feel like an idiot at age 63 while I'm out learning a game that a 14-year-old can play pretty well. But I want to be around people that encourage me and help me through the points so that I don't feel funny. Now, I don't mind learning. I know there's a period of awkwardness. And I will tell you, anybody who's in this business, you will have moments where you are uncomfortable learning. Like I was uncomfortable learning this little thing we just did, obviously, but I'm a better person by going through it, failing, not doing it well. And then if we really wanted, what I would do is I would have someone write it out. I would practice it. I would then come back, have them help me refine the accents, the places that I should have said something slightly different, and then redo it. And I just get better and better at it. It's a process.
And there's always someone there you can reach out to and ask
Yep.
for help. I think Don,
Yes.
that's what Don has been trying to say this entire time, that the help is out there.
Absolutely.
You just have to ask and you can search for it.
Yep.
So in case you ever, you're feeling that you don't understand something, you need to learn something, or some things are not going right, there are people out there and they
Yeah.
really, really do help, genuinely.
Yeah.
So,
And they're at this festival. Okay.
and some of them are at this festival, yeah.
One amazing person is on the screen right now. We're talking about Don Baarns. So
I was going to say
you
Ashwin.
can book it. You can.
No,
reach
he
out to
doesn't.
Don and-
That one is like Ashwin.
I just say you too, but okay. I appreciate it. And if I can help with something, of course, I'm always happy to do so.